Thank you, Ella, for that introduction. That is the first time somebody said that I don't need an introduction. I don't think, I do not think it's correct, but I feel humbled. Actually, the first time the people of GitLab met, the first time I met my co-founder was at Railsbury at a conference he organized. And it was a wonderful conference to meet. The only unfortunate thing was they switched our Airbnb place just a few hours before we landed because there wasn't hot water. So we were all in the new place, and Dimitri was on a prepaid cell phone. So he was like, "Where are you guys?" And then he got cut off. It was his first time traveling internationally. It was his first time flying. He didn't take it very well. He thought I might have set him up or something. Maybe we weren't really in the city. He kind of panicked. He got into a hotel, and when we found him after hours after he got back on the internet, we actually had to convince him to leave the hotel and get to our place, and had to convince him that it was really something. I've never had such a good beer as after that when we were finally together. But luckily, the rest of the week it was a conference, and that was really awesome. GitLab is collaboration software, so it lets people collaborate on code. It allows you to have a software development lifecycle, go from an issue to deployment, all within open source software. Comparable products are GitHub and Bitbucket, made by Atlassian. Those are closed source. We're open source, and we're used by over 100,000 organizations that use the open source version. We also have a paid version. It's paying customers include IBM, NASA, NASDAQ, General Motors, lots of big American companies. Over 1,000 people contributed to GitLab. Last year we were with 9 people full-time working on it. Now we're with 54 people working on GitLab. So, in an open source company, there are a lot of business models. Wikipedia has a good section, and it's like many more than fit on this slide. And we tried quite a few of them. When I started GitLab, I didn't start GitLab. Dimitri started GitLab in 2011. He thought there should be something like this. There isn't anything. I needed open source. He was working in Ukraine. He didn't have a budget for it. He thought, I need good collaboration software. So he did what all good programmers do. He made his own. How hard can it be? And people joined. Hundreds of people contributed. I saw it a year later, and I was like, hey, this makes so much sense. All the software I use as a programmer is open source. It makes sense for my collaboration software to be open source as well. And I also saw an opportunity. Nobody was running software as a service. Nobody was running GitLab.com. So I bought the domain name. I sent an email to Dimitri, like, Dimitri, I'm going to try to make loads of money with your software. I'm not going to pay you anything. I phrased it slightly different, but he was like, totally fine, that's fine, it's open source, you can do what you want. Actually, I love it for you to make it more popular. So you don't owe me anything, go for it. And that attitude has served us really well. You might not know the name, but there's a company in Alameda called Perforce Software. And before people started using Git, they used Perforce. Many of the gaming companies still do. And they are now shipping their product with GitLab. And we've always had this attitude, we want even our competitors to use GitLab. And now that's actually happening, and it's wonderful. And they contribute to GitLab, and it's more now of a shared product. Anyway, back to the SaaS thing, that was a really bad idea, because I figured out that you can't make any money with the SaaS product. Atlassian, Bitbucket, has a completely free product that's also kind of good, more popular, so I didn't have any price leverage, I couldn't charge anything. I somehow was like Mr. GitLab because I had GitLab.com, so people started asking me questions, including Apple Computing. They said like, hey, can't you add a few more features to GitLab for us? I was like, well, I don't know GitLab so well. But at the same time, Dimitri tweeted, just a tweet, just out to everybody, no ad reply or something, just, I want to work on GitLab full time. Which is quite gutsy, because he was full-time employed, and here he was just saying out to everybody, I just want to work on GitLab, I don't want to do my stinking job. But I saw it, I sent him an email, let's make it happen. I started paying Dimitri to work on it full-time, and he started implementing the features that these large enterprise customers wanted. And that worked really well. And we thought, you know what? The SaaS thing isn't working, we'll try donations. Because we have people emailing us the whole time, GitLab is the best thing since sliced bread, how can I help you? I can program, or I can program only in Java, but I want to donate. So we put up donation banners, buttons everywhere. And what came out, Dimitri used to call it ice cream money. So with all the money we gathered in a month, he could buy ice cream. He bought pretty expensive, like $7 ice cream. For him, his fiancée at the time. It wasn't a lot. And I'm a management science guy, so I optimized it. And 1 month, I think we had a big drive and we had $1,000. $1,000 with 3 people, that's not a lot of money. It's enough for ice cream, but not for anybody's expenses. So that didn't work. So we thought, you know what? We're just going to charge these customers to build the features. That makes sense, right? You just build features. That didn't work either. The problem is, it's really hard for them to purchase this. So if they want to go to the procurement process, they have contractors, they have designated contractors that build software for them. So it's kind of hard to bring out another party, pay them per hour. Plus you get the whole negotiation, how many hours should it be? You get the whole negotiation, what exactly should the feature look like? And if you've ever programmed, you know, when you start programming something, halfway through you're like, oh, we should do this differently and it fits better with the code base. You can't do that if you agreed on a fixed price and a fixed set of features. Plus we had all this work that was basically unpaid, helping the open source people, answering their questions, etc. So you kind of want to make an enormous margin on what you're selling to be able to afford to do all the other work. For example, right now, we're just starting to pipe all the questions asked on the internet about GitLab, Stack Overflow, Reddit, anywhere, into our Zendesk system and just answer them. Like, the whole internet is getting paid support. We're not advertising this, but we're going to do this. And that costs a lot of money because you have to pay people to do it. So what you need is amazing margins. Guess what? The best business model is in the history of Silicon Valley. And now everybody's going to say SaaS software because like Salesforce, stuff like that. You know what margins are on SaaS software? It's pretty good. It's like between 70 and 80%. You know what's even better? Is on-premises software. Because you don't actually have to host it, so you don't have those costs. So we have over 90% margins. Basically, if we give a license for our enterprise edition, they're not going to ask any questions because we make good software and we have good documentation, so that's kind of solved. They run it themselves, so we don't have to maintain it. They're not asking us questions there. And the software we can duplicate for free. So it's an extremely high margin business, which is awesome if you're a startup and growing. What also helps is that everybody prepays a year in advance for software. That does wonders for your cash flow. So what we did, we took all the stuff we made for Apple. We said, hey, all this functionality here is our enterprise edition, and you should pay $50 per user per year for that, which is quite affordable, but gives us the 90% margins. Now we have, every time we make a new feature, we have a choice. Do we put it on in the community edition or in the enterprise edition? About 80% of the time, it goes in the community edition. It's kind of the default choice. We don't limit the community edition. There are both Alibaba and Oracle are running it with over 10,000 users completely free. That's great. We just want everybody to run GitLab. You don't have to pay. There are no essential things missing. You can just run proper GitLab.com-like service with our community edition. What we pick for the enterprise edition are features that are more relevant if you have more than 100 people. And a good example is LDAP functionality. LDAP is like this directory of all the people in your organization. If you have our community edition, everybody can log in via LDAP, so you can reuse a password that you already know. If you get our enterprise edition, if you're on the iOS team in your company directory, you're in the iOS team in GitLab. And if it changes in GitLab. This is stuff that only matters if you have hundreds or thousands of people, and administrating these kind of things becomes essential. What's really important, we introduced our paid edition, and everybody was really skeptical, like, oh, GitLab's taken a turn for the worst. They're never going to do anything open source again. So we had to show, no, we really care about the open source edition. We're still sending massive amounts of new features in there every month. We'll never deprecate a feature. We'll never move something from the open source one to the closed one. Because why would you you're not a good steward of your open source project if you remove features. Like, you should always act in the interest of the project. We also have to be open to merge requests. If we have a paid feature and somebody makes the same feature without stealing the proprietary code, but makes the same feature and contribute it, we have to just merge that, because that's what you would do if you are a good steward. We had only one such incident, and the person took literally the last space and comma, the exact code from the enterprise edition, and contributed to the community edition. So it was a pretty easy no, but in case people really make something originally, then you have to consider that. And last and most importantly, you have to listen for signals in the community when people are upset, like, why is this a paid feature? We had that happen. It happened on Hacker News a couple of weeks ago, and we just say, okay, well, if this is something where we made a wrong judgment, we'll open source it. And the example was branded landing pages. The ability to change the homepage of GitLab, we thought, oh, nobody cares about that unless you're a big enterprise and you want your big enterprise logo on that. We were wrong. People cared. The people from VLC, the video LAN thing, they cared about it. So we're like, okay, it's almost a trivial feature, but we don't want to withhold this. So we merge it into the community. One thing we're working on now is that one price point is nice, but it's better to have even more price points. So we're going to charge $99 per user per year for 24/7 emergency support. Most people don't care about that, but the bigger companies tend to care about it a lot more. We have GitLab Geo, geographically redundant servers. So if you have a team here and a team in India, the people in India can clone just as fast. Again, much more important to really large enterprises. So the goal is to get more money from the people that can afford it by giving them, by withholding features that are very relevant to them. And therefore have loads of people that pay nothing, and then have a bunch of people that pay a lot more than the rest. And these people care less about what it costs, they care more about what it can do. Also, you have to send them really good salespeople, because you have to explain the product more, you have to help with implementation, so your costs are also higher. So it kind of makes sense to charge more. We found that like open source is a really, open core, the business model, is a really tricky balance, because everybody's always watching, are you acting in the best interest of the open source project? So you gotta put your ears wide open, always be out there in discussions, in conversations, and adjust where necessary. But after a while, people see what you do, you write down what you do. If you go to our About page, you'll find a whole section about our stewardship and about our criteria. And then they start to trust you. And then it allows for really fast growth, because these 90% margins, they allow us to go really fast. We've taken venture capital, and we need that, but we need a lot less this way than otherwise, and we're a lot more sustainable business. Yeah, I'd love for you to ask questions.